What starts with P? Ooh, pony starts with P, and so does prank, Pinkie Pie, or in this episode's case, passable. I'm Finn the Pony, and it's time for Finbits. So, 28 pranks later, an episode where Rainbow goes absolutely prank crazy in Ponyville until one of her jokes seems to go too far and she learns the error of her ways. Does the idea of a zombie pony outbreak end up being as awesome as it sounded in bridal gossip?
Is it zombies?
Not very likely.
Not likely, but possible?
Let's find out. Anyone who's familiar with Season 1 would know that Rainbow Dash is no stranger to playing a good prank. So this episode decides to take that aspect of her personality and play around with it. And for what it's worth, for every generic or uncomfortable moment in this episode, there's always something just over the horizon to brighten things up. For instance, the episode begins with Rainbow playing a prank on Fluttershy. And I'm not just talking about a simple spook that would make her jump. I'm talking about terrifying her to the point of tears. Jeez, Rainbow, I know Flutters has come a long way since Season 1, but you know how scared she can get if she's pushed too far. But luckily, right after the incident, the main six actually confront Rainbow about what she did and give her a much-deserved talking to. They don't just brush it off or wait until the end of the episode to tell her, they do it as soon as possible to ensure that it will never happen again. Glad to know that her friends are taking some real responsibility when it comes to Rainbow's ego. I know they're just doing what's best for her. And honestly, what's best for everyone else too. Bad Rainbow, go to your room! But unfortunately, Rainbow takes their advice the wrong way and tries to take her pranks to more and more insane levels. Cranky's toupee being replaced with a skunk, putting a giant boulder in Big Mac's apple cart, putting a brick in Mr. Cake's sandwich? I won't lie, that last one made me cringe a little. Forcibly biting down on something hard is a painful experience. But to be fair, the progression from prank to prank does seem very natural. Her jokes get more and more cruel as her ego gets more and more inflated, to the point where she plans to prank the entire town at the same time. It's cruel and uncomfortable, sure, but at least it makes sense from Rainbow's perspective. Speaking of pranking the whole town, I can honestly see the ending coming from a mile away. This premise was done earlier and better by Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends in the episode Nightmare on Wilson Way. Go check it out, by the way, it's a good watch. But generic premise and predictable ending aside, the execution here was still pretty entertaining. The Craze Cookie Craving Ponies was an interesting way to bring a zombie-type creature into an MLP episode. I doubt we'll ever have legitimate undead zombies in the show, but it's nice to dream, isn't it? I also felt that the build-up to the climax did its job pretty flawlessly. I mean, just look at the Cake's house here. Just replace those cookies and boxes with bones and body parts and this would be a pretty convincing zombie setup. Just listen to the sound of Mrs. Cake eating with her head turned away. Couldn't that pass for a zombie chewing on a brain?
Mrs. Cake! Ew! Have you seen Pinkie? I was thinking I might have something to do with her not feeling great. Mrs. Cake?
And even if you didn't know what a zombie was, which would be really hard to believe considering they're everywhere nowadays, the atmosphere is still terrifying enough to work on its own outside of context. And lastly, the moral, while not as complex or close to home as most others this season, was done fairly well. We all know how a joke can go too far sometimes, and that when you play a prank on someone, you need to take others into account, or the joke can go from something that's funny to something that's hurtful. I'd say it was well executed for what it was. 28 pranks later, while not having the most original of stories, certainly doesn't deserve to be left dead and buried. Despite a generic plot, the creativity in the execution saves this one from just being a generic dud. And while Rainbow did have her annoying and insensitive moments, her friends took every opportunity they could to keep her in check, which was certainly welcome in my book. It's more entertaining than Cart Before the Ponies was at the very least, so if you're in the mood for some dark yet enjoyable fun, I'd definitely say check it out. Also, we finally got a canon pony version of the Girl Scouts in this episode. So that must mean there are pony Boy Scouts as well, right? We'll be seeing them in a later episode, right? Please? Certified Eagle Scout here? Been in scouting since I was 6? Would love to see scouting on one of my favorite shows? Please? Well, I hope y'all enjoyed my quick little playthrough this episode, and feel free to tell me what you thought of this episode in the comments below. Do you think this episode managed to hold its own despite its generic bits? Do you think a real zombie outbreak will ever occur in this show? Well, this is a world where horses can do magic, and John Delancey references Metal Gear Solid games, so I'm not ruling it out entirely. Thanks for playing along with me. I'm Finn the Pony, and I'll see you all next time on Finmates.